Good morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning. Last you seen us, we were still dealing with cinching her up and her kind of overreacting to that process. So, like I explained probably too thoroughly in my last video, was I am not willing to jump through these steps with these horses, especially ones like her. And the reasoning for that is, I know it's pretty self-explanatory in a lot of cases, but like everything, it sounds a lot more simple than it is. It's until we can get the very, very basics down, like standing still to saddle and accepting the cinch, there really isn't a whole lot of point to move to the next step. Because if we don't have the very, very basics down and she's not accepting pressure from the cinch, then what makes me think that if I were to move on to the next step, that all of a sudden this step is going to magically just get better? So for me, taking our time and breaking each thing down, and I'm not expecting perfection by any means before I move on to the next step, but I want some consistency. I want to see some consistent improvement to where when I saddle her up and cinch her up, that her world isn't coming to an end. Even if it's for 10 seconds of her world's not coming to an end. Or I take that back. If I first saddle her up and for 10 seconds her world is just shutting down and closing in on top of her, then she's not truly understanding the pressure being put on her. So for me to want to move on to the next step doesn't make sense. Not in my mind anyway, but it is amazing how, and I've been very guilty of it in the past, where I'm training in a rush or I'm just trying to stroke my own ego by like, all right, well, let's just get on this horse and let's just get her going and we'll deal with that later. Well, you never deal with it later, because later comes and more problems start presenting themselves to you that are more urgent. So you start accepting less and less by expecting more and more, and it just short circuits, and eventually you just got nothing to work with. So for me to go through and be very thorough on what I am expecting out of this filly is just continual improvement until this isn't a big deal for her. Then when I move on to the next step, I have a foothold in what we already know and what we already are good with, to always be able to step back a notch and work on and solidify that even more for a few days if things start getting a little hairy moving forward. So it's like everything. If you got a good solid foundation, you can always go back to that foundation and readjust or rebuild from there. But if you just pour your concrete on wet ground, when you start adding more weight to it and more pressure to it and start building your house, if that foundation isn't solid, then everything starts sinking. And before you know it, over time, if you just keep piling lumber and shingles and then furnish it and live in it and this and that, well, then when it gets, as time goes on, that your house just falls apart. And it's the same principle for training these horses. Is we need solid ground to build on. So I would consider our groundwork very much our foundation. And in order to continually build on that, we have to make sure that foundation is rock solid, because as we add more pressure and add more things on our to-do list, so right here, I can just read her just a little, and she didn't move a notch, but I can just read her body language here where she's like, here it comes, it's going to be tight. So I just reset, make it not a big deal. So here's something I'm going to try and incorporate a little bit to maybe help her along with this process, is not associate saddle and moving her feet with blow up. So I'll set it on her, and I always risk this saddle falling off and stepping backwards, but I honestly don't think we have much of a saddling problem. It's just that initial, when we put the saddle on and she has to move her feet first, she goes, she tightens up and panics about it when she hits that cinch pressure. So I figured maybe if we just put the saddle on her and just make her move her feet a little bit, just so she knows that just because the saddle's on her back doesn't mean we have to blow up. Now you can still see she's not content with this at all, because she knows what's coming next, because we've done it enough that she knows this cinch is going to tighten up on her, and she don't like it, and she's got something to say about it every day, and we're okay with that. So we just keep plugging away at it. I'm going to keep touching her with it, and I'm just going to take my time. I'm not going to be in a rush here, because for me, it's my job to assess what progress we are making. And even though we are making progress, I have to adjust on the fly. And it's like everything. It's like everything in this deal, in life in general, is you can keep doing the same thing every day. And yes, you keep showing up and you keep trying to just show up and do the same routine, things might get better, but it might take a very long time, where if you're willing to make just a little tiny adjustment, like right here, I'm just holding this thing on her, and I'm just going to stand next to her for a minute. And I've already felt this filly take a big, deep breath. And I'm not saying this is going to work great, but I can feel her taking deep breaths right now, and she's pushing on that cinch, even though I'm just holding it here with my hand. And I'm letting her feel that cinch. So before I ask for anything else, before I commit to tighten it all the way up with the latigo and all that, I'm just going to sit here and hold it just for a minute and just let her breathe, let her put some pressure on that cinch. And maybe by making that minute adjustment in my routine, I can help the process along. And it's not changing anything, it's just maybe just stepping back just a notch to help the next step come to me. Where if I just keep just cinching her all the way up and, all right, darling, you just deal with it. To a degree, yes, she has to deal with it, but like I've been preaching throughout this whole series with this filly, is I have to meet her somewhere. So I can't expect her to come all the way to me, but I can't be the one to go all the way to her as well. So we have to find some sort of middle ground that we can both live with and be okay with, that's going to help both of us continue on in our process. So even though we are moving forward, doing what we're doing, I can't be scared to adjust a little bit. So right here, I'm not making a big deal out of her moving her feet, because she's just preparing for this cinch, because I just put the latigo through it. And again, I'm just holding it here. So now I got the latigo through it, but I haven't tied it off. So I'm just holding this cinch against her belly right now, and I'm letting her breathe. She's looking at me. She's like, I don't know, man. I ain't a big fan of this. This is Saturday morning. I want to be eating cereal and watching cartoons. I don't want to be out here dealing with you. But she has to be, because we are getting paid to ride this filly, or to work with this filly. We're getting paid to ride. We're losing money, but so right here, not a big deal. We're taking some steps, but our steps aren't explosive. So I'm willing to deal with it. I don't have this tied off by any means, but I do have a hold of it. So I'm just going to let her stand here and feel this for a second before I commit to notching it up just a little bit more. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to meet her in the middle somewhere. I want this process to not be explosive. And we can keep just cinching her up and saying, there you go, deal with it. Or we can slow that step down. We're good with saddling. That's not really an issue. We're pretty good about saddling. It's just that initial cinch up is where we have our big moment every day. And then once she feels it for a second, she moves through it. So I'm going to back up just a little bit and say, hey, what if I just take my time and cinch you up for a minute and just let you breathe, let you put some pressure on it, and not necessarily have it real snug? Is this going to help us get to continue moving forward? And it might not, but I have to be willing to try some new things, because if I'm not willing to try new things or to adjust what I'm doing, then we might get stuck in a stalemate, or I might end up creating a problem long term, where if I can get her to accept just a little bit slower, if I can get her to accept just a little bit less, that might speed up my process tremendously. If I'm willing to slow down just a hair on this one piece of the puzzle, it might help me finish completely. So it might help me get to the next step quicker, I should say. By slowing down, I might end up moving faster. So that's a really hard thing to grasp when you're in the middle of it, because there are a lot of times that go on where you just want to get to the next step. You don't want to feel stuck anywhere. But it's like everything else in life, is the more you try and force something, I find the more you push on an issue or force something along, the further away it gets from you. So you have to be willing to try something else in order to get to your end goal. I don't care how I get there. Well, I do. I don't want to get there in the wrong way. But if I have to adjust what I'm doing just little bits, it's not a big adjustment. It's going to take 20 seconds longer or a minute longer for me to cinch her up. But if that minute I spend, so it's still not perfect, but it's better. We're not having a complete meltdown. We're licking our lips already. So if I spend an extra minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever saddling her up, but it might take me a little longer to get her saddled, but I might shave that time off the back end of how much time it's going to take me to work her and get her to accept it. As you can see, she's still tight. But again, I'm not rushing this process. I am going to just sit here or stand here and walk around and let her move her feet, let her take her breath, and let her figure out that, all right, I'm not blowing up, so it's not things are better when I don't blow up. Things are quieter. This guy is a lot more relaxed around me. I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm not putting myself in any stress. So we might ultimately, by slowing down, speed it up. So I'm just going to wait her out here. She's still not committed to being relaxed. So before I snug her up just a little bit more, I'm just going to walk her around here. And I'm going to be very aware of what's going on around me. So if she's tight, I'm going to make sure I redirect. I'm going to make sure I redirect her. But I'm also not going to panic on her behalf. If she's going to panic, she's got to panic on her own. I've just got to be ready to intervene if she does tighten up to the point where she wants to do something explosive. So I just have to move around until I feel her, until I can see her body language start to change, or she starts to relax, her ears loosen up a little bit. So see, I don't know if you can see it as well, but a lot of the time her ears are put back on this saddle. So she is still very much hyper focused on that saddle being cinched up. So until I read a different signal from her saying that, all right, I don't really care about this cinch anymore, I'm not going to add any more pressure to it. I'm not going to cinch it up anymore. I'm just going to let her walk around until I see a change in her body language. And I'm going to walk around confidently like ain't nothing a big deal, because it isn't. And the more I don't feed into her energy, she's going to start bringing her heart rate down as well. So we're just going to keep hanging out here until I see a change. That's okay. She wants to have a moment, she can have a moment all by herself. But I'm going to change direction. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to change direction again. So all this is just trying to bring her into focus on something else. And you know, it's like us. If you're having a problem and you just focus on that problem, well, that problem is very much there. It's at the forefront of your mind, where you have to deal with your problems, but if all you can do is fixate on how much that problem makes you uncomfortable, you're not thinking with the solution. You're not, all you're thinking about is how that problem is affecting you negatively. You're not trying to figure out a way to work through that problem. You're just, it's like, man, this really sucks. Okay. And, you know, yeah, but saying it sucks doesn't make it go away. So, or it's not helping you deal with it. So you have to do some different, you have to come at it with a different angle. You have to redirect your energy into either learning how to accept that that problem is there and it ain't going nowhere, or you have to ultimately fight it until you lose. And for me, the biggest thing I've learned in life is no matter what, life is hard. I mean, there's no easy way to be an adult. There's no easy way to run a business and train horses for a living, or pump gas for a living, or whatever you do. It doesn't matter. No one is immune to problems. Everyone's going to have problems. And if your solution to problems is to just shut down and hide or fight or do whatever, you're not solving anything. So I can't control necessarily everything in life that happens to me, but I can very much control how I react to it. So in my younger years, I mean, if something came at me that upset me or offended me or insulted me or whatever, I mean, I was ready to fight or hide. I mean, that was I would just shut down or I would fight. And it never got me anywhere. I was just miserable. I was in a more miserable state where the older I got and the more mature I got and the more I understood, as things happen to me now, yeah, I still very much get upset. I still very much get mad. I get sad. I get, as things happen. But my reaction is much different than it used to be. For the most part, I still revert back to some things every once in a while. Obviously, no one is perfect, and I am very far from perfect. But for me, the more I learn to control myself when things around me aren't perfect or ideal for me, the better those things seem to get. So as you can see, this filly is starting to dial in a little bit more. She's still not 100% happy with this saddle, and this is going to take a while. I mean, you can ask her owner. Her mother didn't really start becoming a willing participant in this whole being a reining horse thing until she's like 5 years old. So, and now her owner's kicking butt on her. Every time she shows her, she wins a check on her. So, was that filly tough? More than likely. I'm sure she was almost identical to this one, but was she worth the wait and worth the effort? Very much so. And I have a sneaking suspicion this filly here, if we just take our time and let her do her thing, we're going to end up with a really nice horse. So I snugged it up just a little bit a second ago. I'm going to snug it up a little bit more, and I'm just going to continue on the same process. I'm just going to snug it up and walk around. So by adding just a little bit more effort on my end, I might speed up her willingness to just go to work and participate without having any major malfunctions. I might improve that, so it's worth it for me to do it. Where if I just keep coming out and say, nope, this is how we do things, and you're going to do it, we might be doing this until she's 20 years old. So you can see we still have some tightness, but it's not near as explosive as it was. So for me, this is a win. Is it perfect? And we have other things going on over here. My daughter's leaning over the fence, and she's got something in her hand that's flopping around, and it drags focus away from her, from what I'm doing. But it's part of the process. We're never going to have a perfect scenario here. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a trash bag flying around somewhere, or there's going to be kids running around, or there's going to be a dog that runs under the fence. It doesn't matter. Again, it's not about controlling. It's not about controlling the setting. It's about controlling how we react to the setting. And that's a very much independent thing. All I can do for this filly is be a focal point for her to always revert back to for some security. But she ultimately has to learn how to deal with things on her own. So all I can do is help open the doors for her to walk through, but she has to step through them herself. So this again, I know it's long-winded, but it's repetitive, but welcome to horse training. I mean, to truly train these horses properly, you always have to adjust, and you have to change your plan, and you have to know when to back off. You have to know when to push. And then there's days where you just have to know when to not do nothing. I mean, for me, like if I come out here and this filly just seems off for some reason, she just doesn't feel like we're not gonna get anything productive done today, then we might just put her up. I mean, or if I come out and I'm off, if I'm in a rush or I have something that I'm dealing with mentally, or if I feel sore physically or sick or whatever, and I know that my mental focus isn't going to be where it needs to be to work with this filly, then I'm not going to. And that for me was one of the hardest lessons to learn, is sometimes knowing when not to train on them is actually some of the best training you'll get done. Is because if you come out here and you're a little irritable or not patient or whatever, and you're not going to deal with her being reactive to what she's reactive to every day so far, you're going to set yourself backwards. So for me, like I always say, one bad ride takes a long time to fix. So if I come out and I'm quick-tempered or I'm just not focused, and I come out and I make a mistake on this filly, then I might do something that's going to take me a tremendously long time to fix, or I might create something that I may never be able to fix. So for me to make sure that I'm in a good frame of mind and to be able to read my horse and see if she's in a good frame of mind, that's a very important part of the equation that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Is sometimes not training is training too. And that doesn't mean that they're going to learn everything they need to know standing in a stall, and that every day, it doesn't mean that you should never apply pressure, because it's very much the opposite. You do need to apply pressure in order to grow. But so I'm just going to let her kind of go for a second. There you go. You do need to very much apply pressure to gain momentum and to progress, but pressure doesn't have to happen every day. And sometimes it's more pressure, sometimes it's less pressure that's going to move you forward. Today I opted for less pressure. Today I said, you know what? This filly, last time I saddled her up, when I first touched her with the cinch, she really had a big, no, I don't want that and I don't like it reaction to it. So if I took offense to that and said, well, I don't care if you don't like it or not, you're doing it. If I come out with that mentality and want to box with her about that, I might make that problem worse. So instead I said, you know what? Maybe if I come out here and just slow it up just this much. It wasn't that big of a deal for me to just back off a hair. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're not riding this filly today. Anyway, we're not going to move on to the next step until the saddling up process goes smoother and quicker. But sometimes in order to speed up, you have to slow down. But like, she's still not 100% relaxed here, but today we didn't have any major blowups. We had a couple tight moments, but we never had any major blowups. I'm not saying that we're not about 2 seconds away from having one, but hey, look at that. See, like she's still going to try that move that I let her away with a couple times last week. or last time we worked on her. And I don't care what lead she's in. Right now she's picking to be in 2 different ones. This used to be something that drove me nuts. I used to never, ever let them go around on 2 different leads. But to me, it's not a reflection on if she's good leaded, bad leaded or not. I know this filly knows how to lope on 1 lead because I've seen her do it a million times. But right now she was on 2 different leads because she's not relaxed and she's not carrying herself. So if I go to making a big deal out of her not being on the correct lead, I'm probably not helping our cause on getting her to just relax. If I start nitpicking one thing that's really not our problem right now, our problem is just, hey, deal with the cinch. But if I start giving her heck about the lead, then I'm probably going to make the cinch problem worse because she's going to be worried too much about me. She's going to be worried about being in trouble for not being on the correct lead when truly she just needs to learn how to deal with the cinch. And as you can see, the less of a deal I make of it, the more she's fixing it herself because it's not easy to lope around on 2 different leads, especially in a tight space like this. So she's going to figure out the more she relaxes and gives, the more she stands up. It's a lot easier to move around here standing up straight with your hock up underneath you than it is to be on 2 different leads, dropping your shoulder and being tight. Being tight with your shoulder dropped on 2 different leads leads to probably falling down if pressure gets really tight. So again, we're just working through the paces here. All I'm trying to do at this moment is just allow her to have her time to relax and figure out that this saddle being on her back is not a big deal. And it's just going to take time with this one, you know, like we've got a couple other yearlings here that we're you know, they've done enough now to where they can be put up for the rest of the year. Where this one here, she's not quite there yet. And we're not gonna push the issue and try and traumatize her to make it happen. We're just going to kind of just keep messing with her and keep working with her to just let it happen. So again, here we are. She still wants to be a little tight about things, but overall, this is a much more productive session. So I don't want to get too... My intent isn't to bore you guys to death with my speaking or anything like that. It is just very important that we all understand that this is just going to take time. And if we try and add more pressure to an already tense situation, it's going to unravel on us. So right here, she's just trying to beat me a little bit, but I'm not going to make a huge deal out of it. I'm going to correct her. I'm going to make sure that if she does think about turning away from me, that I'm going to add pressure to the situation, but I'm also not going to attack her for making a mistake or for trying something else. So right here, I want her to just step. Yeah, see, that's a good decision on her part. She had the option to go the other way, but she's starting to figure out that turning away from me is not what I'm looking for her to do. So here we go. I'm happy with this. All right. So this is by no means a perfect session, but as long as we're seeing improvement on what I'm trying to, what our ultimate goal is for her to accept coming in here and just having me saddle her up and going. That's what we need to work towards. I mean, it's not there it's so simple, it's complicated, you know, like, because we want to just move on, and I do want to move to the next step, but until the first step is rock solid, I'm not willing to skip past it. I want to, if I have to adjust what I'm doing to make that process easier, and hopefully next time I can do some of that and that process will go quicker. Maybe I won't have to do it for quite as long, or maybe I can just hold it with the latigo next time to start and just let her kind of breathe and figure it out, and then snug it up just a little bit, move her forward, snug it up a little bit, and then turn her loose. That's kind of where I'm hoping this is going to go, is that by adding just a little more time to a certain step, maybe then the steps will get maybe then that time I'll to each step will reduce to where eventually we'll just come out and just have a normal, you know, I'll just be able to throw the saddle on her and cinch her up and step away from her and let her move around, and then at that point then we'll start moving into what we need to do next. So anyway, again, I hope this isn't too long-winded. I really hope that the information I'm trying to get across to y'all is coming across the way I'm hoping it is. And I just really, again, I want a raw look at what starting a horse with a very strong survival instinct looks like. You have to break it down and be just a little more thorough than one that's a little more forgiving, and maybe just one that's just going to accept things. Like the other ones, I mean, shoot, we saddle them in the barn now and lunge them around for a second and get on them. So they're all individuals, but you have to read the room here. Like this filly, she doesn't want to be bad by any means. It's quite the opposite. She's trying so hard not to get in trouble, she gets herself in trouble. So again, I hope y'all enjoy it. Feel free to message or comment or anything like that. And again, just stay tuned for next time. Thank you very much.